as we are waiting for some last minute permission to head on out there, please do remain seated at all times with your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside of the truck. If you're traveling with any little ones today, they are more than welcome to sit on your lap if you want them to. But they do need to be sitting on the same person's lap for the entire safari. Please no lift them up or pass them around from person to person. Alright, just be another moment or two here, and then we'll all get to enter the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. Now, Harambe is actually Swahili for come together, so we hope that during your time here today, you can come together with these animals to learn a little bit more about their ecosystems and ways you can help protect their environments. Our first destination today is the Little Aturi Forest, where animals are going to primarily rely on camouflage to protect themselves. Looks like there on our right, we have a couple of okapi. And despite those okapis, who are like body and zebra-like prints on their hind legs, they're going to be the closest living relative of giraffe. Both okapi and giraffe have a prehensile tongue. Prehensile means finger-like, so for the okapi, their tongue acts kind of like our finger. Primarily just helps them grab any native vegetation off of trees. Now, we have another friend hiding out over here on our left. Not behind that bamboo there, that's a bongo. Now, bongos are nicknamed the ghosts of the forest. These animals are so good at hiding, they're actually rarely ever seen. Alright, now we're going to keep moving along here, see what else we can find. On our left, we have a watering hole. It's a popular gathering spot for animals here in the forest. Looks like we have a saddleboat stork in the watering hole right now. She gets her name from that yellow satellite print you might be able to see on her bill there. She's kind of showing off to us at the moment. Also by a black rhino sleeping above the watering hole. These black rhinos have no natural predators. Their only threat is us humans, and unfortunately due to poaching, there's actually less than 5,000 in the world today. There is hope though. Programs like those funded by the Disney Conservation Funds and organized by other AZA accredited associations are helping to revive the black rhino population and reintroduce them into the wild once again. Now, a fun and easy way to help out the rhinos, really all the animals you see on here today, is just by finding other AZA accredited zoos and aquariums you can go visit and support to help further educate yourselves in conservation efforts and who we're really to share this beautiful planet with. Alright, now we got a few more friends hanging out here on our left. These antelope here are greater kudu. They all like to be female greater kudu to me, and I can tell just because they don't have any horns. And the females also tend to be a little bit more social than males, hang out in groups of 2 to 3 like we can see here, whereas males prefer their solitude. We are going to leave the forest now though and head on over to the Safi River. Safi River is home to some more aquatic animals here on the reserve, one of the most notable being the Nile hippopotamus. Hippos are among the largest and most dangerous animals that we can find out here in Africa. However, they like to spend a lot of their time in or under the water and can actually even hold their breath and stay underwater for up to 8 minutes at a time. So keep a close watch on the rivers as we head down here, because any bubbles at the surface could mean there's a hippo down below. I do see some bubbles up ahead we should definitely keep our eye on, but by these bubbles are these large grayish whitish birds, which are pink-backed pelicans. Pink-backed pelicans get their name from the pink spot that appears on their back during their mating season. It's a little bit like they're fleshing out one another. Now we got another river coming up here on our left, so maybe we'll have better luck with finding some hippos over this way. However, hippos are actually nocturnal animals who will sleep underwater, and they naturally know when to pop up to the surface and grab a breath of air, and this is why hippos' ears, eyes, nose are all kind of at the top of its head. That way it barely has to breach the surface to grab the air that it needs. Did someone say they see a hippo? I see some bubbles too. We'll go see if there's any hippos over here. Well, looks like they might be a little too deep down for us to see. We'll keep moving along. If we don't find any hippos here, you can always check out Gorilla Falls. They have an underwater living area of the hippos, but I think we're in luck and you can see the backside of hippo poking out. It's out of water. This is quite a rare sight to see during the day. Like I said, hippos are nocturnal animals. They actually spend the majority of their day in the river and only really leave at night. That's just to go find food. We do have some more friends here in the river as well. Coming up on our left are some Nile crocodile. These are all fully grown Nile crocodile, about 16 to 18 feet long, and it means that they're as long as a giraffe is tall. Now those Nile crocodile are pretty big, but despite their size, they can actually go weeks if not months at a time without ever eating. However, when they do eat, they tend to eat about half of their body weight in a single feeding. And they aren't very picky eaters either. They're what we call opportunistic hunters, and it means that they'd rather take an easy meal over a good meal. So unlike their prey they have to go hunt and work for to capture, they're much more likely to eat anything they find just lying around, like our trash. So it's really important that we don't litter. That way it doesn't end up in these animals' homes and they mistake it for food. Alright, now we're heading on over to the western savanna, and this baobab tree here on our right is going to be one of the first times we're entering that savanna ecosystem. It's nicknamed the Tree of Life, and it gets that nickname from its ability to store thousands of gallons of water inside of its trunk. And it might look kind of familiar as well. That tree will actually be what Animal Kingdom's Park icon is modeled after. And as we start winding on down this hill, we can normally get a pretty good overlook, which we'll end up finding out in the savannah today. I will say word of a picture of who we'll find here, as it does largely vary depending on the animal's sleep and migration patterns. However, I did see a giraffe walking around over there on our right. You'll see him in just a moment. There's some habitat loss, and it actually affects lots of other animals that we've seen on here today as well. This has to do with mining for an element called coltan, and I guarantee we all have coltan on us right now. It's found in a majority of electronics like our smartphones. However, coltan doesn't go bad. So we can properly recycle our electronics when we're done with them. We can take that coltan out and reuse it, as we don't have to mine these animals' homes as often, or maybe even anymore. This is fairly easy to do. All you have to do is bring any old electronics you're no longer using, even something as small as an old electronic toothbrush or an electronics drive, and they'll do all the work for you. It's a great way to practice those 3 R's as well: reduce, reuse, and recycle, which is always a good starting point if you want to take steps towards being a little bit more eco-friendly. Alright everyone, with this though, we are leaving the reserve and heading back into the village. I'll be dropping y'all off. You guys are a pleasure to have before today. It's Sunday's song, and I hope you and collie cattle here as well. 3 types of antelopes, so we're going to have some luck out here today, friends. There's another giraffe actually up there too, wandering around. I bet it's looking for some food. Giraffes spend the majority of their day eating, and this is due to their very unique digestive systems. They're what we call a ruminant, and a ruminant is any animal with a 4-chambered stomach. Giraffes are the largest ruminant. They're also the mammals with the highest blood pressure, and as you can probably guess, the tallest animals in the world. Fully grown giraffe are types of 18 to 20 feet tall, and they're as tall as 6 foot from the moment that they're born. Because of this, a group of giraffe get the name of a tower, but we like to call a group of frightened giraffe a Tower of Terror. Alright, now here on our left, laying down, are some African wild dogs. They're nicknamed the painted dogs because of the coloration of their coat. Now, they're not very territorial animals. They're pretty social, and you can usually see them hanging out packs about 5 to 15 dogs at a time. They are amazing predators with about a 90% success rate in capturing their prey. However, one of the biggest threats to the African wild dog population are snare traps. And a unique way you can help the dogs is by buying artwork that uses snare traps, so it stays out of the savannah and decorates our homes instead. Now on our left here we have a few more giraffes, some sable antelope in the back there. They're actually the emblem of the Harama Wildlife Reserve and a whole confusion of wildebeests. A confusion is what you call a group of wildebeest, because when they're spooked and start stampeding, they tend to run into each other and into other things without even realizing, sort of like they're a little bit confused. And then on our right here we have a Patterson's eland, a couple of them laying down, and the eland is going to be the largest type of antelope. Both males and females have those beautiful twisted horns on top of their heads. They're hanging out by these tall pointed structures, which are termite mounds. They're made out of dirt, saliva, and dung. Personally, I don't know dung being my first choice of building material, but it might be my number 2. Now, lots of these animals like to use termite mounds kind of like a scratching post, and when they get a little bit more worn down from that, smaller antelope perch on top of the leftover stuff to look for any potential predators that may be near. Now here is a much closer look at some of these Maasai giraffe here, and you can tell Maasai is some other subspecies of giraffe that like at the pattern of their coat. Maasai giraffes tend to have spots with a little bit more of an irregular and jagged pattern. We also have some new friends hanging out over here on the left. Those are Nkoli cattle. Now, Nkoli cattle are one of 2 domesticated species that we can find out here on the reserve. They're nicknamed the Watusi cattle after the people who first domesticated them, and they were originally domesticated as a sign of wealth. Now, those long horns that they have on top of their heads there might like they're a little bit heavy and tedious to carry around, but they're actually pretty cool. They help the cattle stay cool, and they're quite light. They're made of a unique honeycomb-like structure on the inside, and this allows their blood to flow through the horns, which will disperse heat and cool down the cattle. This process is called thermoregulation. Now, just around the corner here, looks like we have a few more giraffe that are eating. Giraffes actually spend so much time eating that they have about 30 minutes left in their day to sleep. However, when a giraffe sleeps, they don't lay down like we do. They sit or more often stand, but like I said, they only sleep for about 30 minutes a day, so it's not that big of a deal for them to stand while they eat. And when these giraffes eat, they're going to use that prehensile tongue that they share with the okapi to grab their food, and giraffes spend so much time eating, they need to protect their tongue from the sun. So it's that purplish bluish color you might be able to see in some of the giraffes here. It's just going to help stop it from getting sunburnt. See it pretty clearly in that giraffe immediately to our left trying to grab that leaf, or she was. We are going to keep moving ahead though here as we have a few more friends to meet. We're going to start heading on over to our left, I think, just because there's a lot of trees knocked down this way, and it can be a good indication that there might be some elephants nearby. Elephants tend to act kind of like the bulldozers of the savannah. They often knock down trees in their path so they can more easily eat the bark and leaves off of it. Elephants are as big herbivores or vegetarians, so I'll look for all the added nutrients that they can find. So it definitely looks like an elephant has wandered through this way, and we'll see if we have any luck in finding them. I think we are going to have some luck. It looks like coming up here on our right is an African elephant. Now you can tell African elephants from other species of elephants by looking at the shape of their ears. African elephants tend to have ears that are similar in shape to the continent of Africa. A lot of times they'll flop those ears like that elephant there is doing. It's just to help them stay cool. They can actually decrease their body temperature by 15 degrees by flapping their ears. So we like to say that they have great ear conditioning.
Is there a pregnant elephant here?
I know they mentioned that on the show, that's where you're getting that from, but an elephant's gestation period is nearly like 2 years, so they haven't told us anything, but they're pregnant for a while.
Okay.
In short, I don't know. I know for sure that's not the pregnant elephant. That elephant there is a male, just because he's hanging out by himself. And a lot of times when the male elephants grow up, reach at the age of 15, 16, they're going to leave the big family groups to hang out in solitude, like he was there, or occasionally they will from small, but actually groups of other males. They do this because the larger family groups of elephants live in a matriarch, and it means that the females are the ones in charge. The oldest female in the herd is going to remember information like migration patterns, nearby food and water sources, and she'll end up passing that down from one leader of the herd to the next. Is going to be one of the reasons that elephants are known for their incredible memories. But another thing elephants use those really great memories for is actually to remember the location of bees. Elephants are very, very afraid of bees, and they don't like the vibrations that the buzzing gives off. It freaks them out. They'll actually go as far as to warn other nearby elephants to stay away from an area that has bees in it, and then all remember to stay away from that place for up to 15 years. And this information actually was incredibly useful in research regarding elephant conservation. Elephants are unfortunately suffering from habitat loss, pushing them closer and closer to human civilization. It's causing lots of issues for farmers. Farmers are finding that elephants are either eating their crops or trampling over their crops and wanted a way to start safely deterring the elephants. So they put some beehives on their farms and it scared the elephants away. And there's a few more elephants down that way as well. This is a great solution as well because it provided a new habitat for bees who also suffer from habitat loss. As a little bit of an added bonus, the farmers got some new pollinators for their crops, even some honey that they could sell if they wanted to, so it was kind of a win-win-win for everyone that was involved. And we'll try to make our way a little bit closer to those elephants we saw over on the left here. They're kind of hanging out in the shade. They're probably doing this because elephants have super, super sensitive skin. So aside from hanging in the shade to protect themselves from the sun, they also like to use their prehensile trunk, my apologies, to blow dirt, mud, sand, grass, hay, really whatever they can find onto their back to act like a natural sunblock. Sometimes even the raindrops can be too harsh for these elephants, and on rainy days they completely submerge themselves in water just to help protect their skin a little bit. We're passing by a couple more baobab trees though, so start heading towards these elephants. And another nickname for the baobab tree is the upside down tree, because when it doesn't have its leaves, it kind of does look like it grew upside down and its roots are sticking out. And the baobab tree normally will go leafless like this for about 9 months throughout the year, just to help out with water retention. There's a few more wildebeest behind these baobab trees as well over on the right. This is pretty expected. Wildebeest are going to be the second most densely packed mammals on Earth. The only mammal that we normally find more densely packed than a wildebeest is just us humans. And wildebeest herds can actually be millions upon millions of wildebeest large. So large, in fact, that when they run around, they'll go up an so big that it's been seen from the International Space Station. Just behind these tall grasses here, you can see those elephants a little bit closer up. We also have some other friends around the side as well. It's a whole flamboyance of flamingos. Now, a flamboyance is what you call a group of flamingos. And as we get a little bit closer here, take a look at that island that they're standing on. It's actually going to be a hidden Mickey. Now, these here are greater flamingos. They're going to be the tallest and the lightest pink of all flamingo species. They get their pink color from their diet. It's very rich in a compound called beta-carotene. And flamingos eat a lot of brine shrimp that's abundant in that beta-carotene. If you see any smaller birds there, though, with a little bit more of a grayish, whitish color to them, those are actually just baby flamingos who haven't eaten enough brine shrimp yet to develop the vibrant pink color that we all know them for. It only takes about 2 years for it to fully develop. Alright, now we're going to start heading on into the eastern part of the savannah. There's a really close-up look at an elephant there. We also have some really good signs of animal activity as we make our way on over this way. On our left are what we like to call mud wallows, but it's essentially that little mud pool you can see in the ground there. However, lots of animals like to come to these mud wallows to sleep in, hang out in, or roll around in that mud to help them stay cool. As we talked about with the elephants, the mud can be a really good natural sunblock, but lots of animals here find it's a really good bug repellent as well. So they periodically will return to these mud wallows to cover themselves in mud and set themselves up for a good rest of the day. So we'll keep moving along here to see where they might have wandered off to. Now, as we're trying to find some of these animals, do keep a close watch on any shadows that you see coming up on our left here. Cheetahs often hide out in this area as they don't really like to be spotted. I do see a couple of them hanging on top of that hill there. Now, cheetahs are the fastest land animals. They'll reach speeds of 60 miles per hour in just 3 seconds. However, they can't stay at that speed for very long, and it takes them quite a while to recover after a run. After capturing their prey, cheetahs normally have to wait about 30 minutes to enjoy their meal, just because it takes them that long to catch their breath once again.
Is there any cut cheetahs?
Now, cheetahs are going to be a little unique from most big cats. They actually prefer to go out and do their hunting during the day. Also, unlike most cats in general, cheetahs don't have retractable claws. They kind of use their claws in a similar way that we would use a pair of cleats. Just like your common house cat though, cheetahs are going to purr. They don't roar like other big cats do. They actually don't even have the ability to roar if they want to. I see a couple more cheetahs laying down up ahead here as well. Now, if you ever see a cheetah run, you might notice that it swirls its tail. It looks kind of like a boat propeller, but this is just to help the cheetah stay balanced and change direction if they should need to for any reason. You might notice we slowed down a little bit, and I see the culprits up ahead here. We got a crash of white rhinos coming up on our left, and a crash is what you call a group of rhinos. It's because their eyes are on the sides of their heads, so they don't have the greatest vision. They can only see about 10 to 15 feet in front of them, which makes them a little bit clumsy. There's also one of the babies hanging out over there, though, and Disney's very, very happy to say that we actually have 3 baby southern white rhinos here on the reserve. When fully grown, they'll be about 4,000 to 5,000 pounds, and you cannot wait for them to get that big. Now, these babies are so exciting because these beautiful creatures are unfortunately often poached for their horns. They're thought to have some medicinal value to humans, making them extremely valuable on the black market, but nothing's been scientifically proven. We'll keep driving around the copy here, which is this tall rock formation. It's a popular spot for predators to hang out because it serves as a great vantage point for them to look down over their prey. If we're lucky, we will see some big cats like lions. However, the lion does not sleep tonight. They're nocturnal animals. They sleep about 16 to 20 hours a day, so they could be hiding away sleeping, but there is another friend here on our right. It's an ostrich. Now, an ostrich is the largest bird and the fastest animal on 2 legs. We'll try to see if we get a little bit of a closer look. They actually have the largest eyes of any land animal as well. They're going to be about 2 inches. It looks like we're in luck as well, and just beneath that tree there we have some lions that are sleeping. Now, the reason lions are nocturnal animals is because their vision is 6 times better at night. So females prefer to go out and hunt then, whereas males tend to stay back to look over the copy and any cubs that may be there. Most predators tend to have their own as well, and lions are going to be one of the very few who we often find hunting in packs. This is just because their prey is typically much faster than they are, so you need to work as a team to take them down together. Aside from their nighttime vision though, they also have extremely padded paws, which allows for a nearly silent approach when they're stalking their prey. And they can rotate their ears, helping them better locate their prey through sound, but despite all of this, still about 1 in 50 lion hunts are a success. And there's that ostrich yet again over on our right. And you can tell male ostriches from females by looking at the color of their plumage. Males tend to have feathers that are a little bit darker in color than females. They're a tad bit larger overall as well, so that looks to be a female ostrich there. Her nest is just up ahead here to the right as well, so let's see if she's laid any eggs recently. And it looks like we are in luck. Now, those larger loose figures you can see on the ground there are going to be ostrich eggs. They weigh about 3 pounds each, and that's equivalent to 2 dozen chicken eggs. And they are very, very strong as well. A fully grown adult male could actually stand on top of one of those eggs, and it would not even break. They can withstand up to about 325 pounds. Alright, now we're going to start leaving the savannah, heading on over to Magadi Glen. Magadi is Swahili for geysers, so we might see some small geysers over here. But it's also home to the warden's post, and we're never quite sure of what the warden has been up to. Let's see, it does look like they might have let some of their pets out to come say hi to us. The warden has some Nigerian dwarf goats here on the reserve. They're kind of scattered throughout the backyard, it looks like. And I know that they look small, but I assure you that they're all actually fully grown Nigerian dwarf goats.